2 minutes in or so. So I think I will make a start and get us kicked off with the introductions while there's probably a few other people joining over the next couple of minutes. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by the UK Government's Department for Business and Trade. Focuses on industrial strategy growth. My name is Jo Hawley, and I'm Deputy Trade Commissioner to Europe, and I'm delighted to have you all with us. Before we start, I'd just like to share a bit of housekeeping information. So the session will be recorded and any slides and contact details will be shared with all attendees at the end of the session. Your mics and cameras are disabled by default, but please don't hesitate to post any questions in the chat and we will answer them in the Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. Now, just before we dive in to hear from our two speakers today, so we've got Ben Russell from the Office for Investment and Emmanuel Martin Vignette from Bosch. We're going to just give you a little bit of the context within which we're working. So we're meeting really at a pivotal moment. The UK is making really bold moves to attract international investment and creating new opportunities for growth. And our modern industrial strategy, which we're going to talk about today, is a new long-term plan created with businesses very much in mind and created jointly with businesses. So there was significant widespread consultation with domestic and international industry to craft this. And we also looked at international best practice. And now that we have this strategy in place, we're making it quicker, easier and more profitable for international businesses to choose the UK. And we're doing it from a strong position, but don't take my word for it. Deloitte's latest survey of UK chief financial officers showed that finance leaders see the UK as the most attractive destination in the world when it comes to investment. PwC's annual poll of global CEOs put the UK second only to the US as the most important destination for investment in the world. And EY data shows that the UK is the top destination for foreign direct investment in Europe. But we want to go further and we want you to be part of that journey. And when you collaborate with the UK, you're collaborating with the world, so your ideas can go further and further. Today is really about opportunity. You'll hear about the industrial strategy and how it is creating an attractive and positive environment for investors. And we'll show you how red tape is being cut, infrastructure is being built, and targeted funding is being deployed. Whether you're a strategic investor, a scale-up, or an SME exploring UK expansion, this session is designed to give you clarity on where the UK is where we're investing and where we want you to invest to work alongside us, what support is available, and how you can engage it. So without further ado, let's dive into it with Ben Russell from our new Office for Investment, who will spotlight how the UK's modern industrial strategy is making it easier to invest, in particular in our 8 priority growth sectors. These are advanced manufacturing, clean energy, creative, defence, digital and tech, financial services, and business and professional services. So I shall hand over. Ben.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jo, and thank you for the introduction there. You've already covered off very well some of the points that I'm going to talk about as well, to reiterate them about the great position that the UK is in and sort of why it's a good place to come and do business and how the industrial strategy is supporting that. But before I get into it, I thought I'd just talk a little bit about the UK in general and where we already were before we started the industrial strategy. We were in this great spot where we're sort of the first globally for geographic reach for flows of trade and capital, nicely located sort of between Europe and the Eastern world, and then with America and the Western world. Great location for investment in Europe. We've long been the #1 destination for investment in the UK. Fantastic number of unicorns. It's one of my favourite things that I consider about the UK is businesses that come to the UK grow compared to the rest of Europe. We are the first for the number of unicorns. I believe it's more than France and Germany combined. Third globally for that, only behind China and America. Fantastic university ecosystem, and then lots of trade agreements that are now getting signed around the world. But despite having all of this, I think we looked as a department, as a government, as everything about what can we do to build on this and take things forward. And that's where the industrial strategy comes in. So this was something, as Jo talked about, it was something that the government didn't dictate. It wasn't something that the government just wrote itself. It was really being a big collaboration with businesses, with lots of conversations with businesses to understand what their needs are with investors, people who are already in the UK, people who want to come to the UK, so that to really have those conversations about how we can help them invest, grow, expand, be more competitive, begin to export. What infrastructure do they need? How do we reduce costs, simplify regulations? So all of these things weren't just ideas that ministers came up with or anything like that. It was really based on feedback from businesses. And the focus is on those 8 priority sectors that Joe's talked about. And we'll look at them all in a little bit more detail as I go through. I'll apologise since it's PowerPoint. I do have a slide for each sector and we'll get to them and there'll be more information on them. I thought it might be good just talk some like the bold plans of action that come out of this, kind of like the headline figures. We often hear talk about energy costs in the UK being problematic for businesses. So part of this is cut electricity costs for those electricity intensive British businesses in like automotive and other sectors, reduce those by 25% from 2027, reduce grid connection times, make sure that when you come in and invest, you have what's needed to actually power your business. So there's bills and work that's gone on to support that. Alongside that, we also have billions in finance for innovative businesses. The UK is a great place for venture capital, for raising capital, for businesses to come in. We have the British Business Bank with financial capacity up to 25 billion, with another 4 billion on top of that for the industrial strategy growth sectors that really can support people coming in and growth. And then the OFI, myself, the organisation I work as part of, the Office for Investment, we work as a concierge service to like give tailored support to businesses that are coming in. So what we'll do at the end, I'll showcase, we'll talk about, and I'm sure it'll be brought up again, about Expand Your Business, which is our online portal where you can register, get bespoke support, and there when it's needed, you can connect into people within the Office for Investment who can support you further. So just moving on from that bold 10-year plan that we have developed, as I say, with business, for business. That's one of our key headlines that I'd love everyone to take away from this, is how it was created. As you said, removing those barriers to investment, regulatory reform, making sure that it's easy to get planning permission, it's easy to grow your business, it's easy to recruit and hire people. We have the Global Talent Program where we're making it easier to get visas for high-level jobs, easier to employ people that you need to come in. Loads of cuts to those planning reforms because businesses kept telling us that that was a huge difficulty in the UK. So that's something that we've really pushed on making better. And then lots and lots of investor-friendly reforms. Everything I've mentioned so far comes under the investment-friendly branch. And then the financial incentives. So the UK's always been pretty good. I think there's a lot of things that get missed, unfortunately, in a lot of conversations with where the UK sits. But then the financial incentives, we've sort of turned it up even more as part of the industrial strategy. I'll talk about some individual sectors as we go through, but there's some great things like the uncapped R&D tax credits. So if you're working in those kind of innovative fields that we want to look at, then the tax credits are now uncapped for that. Patent box corporation tax reduction. So when you're creating patents, when you're creating new things, there's that potential reduction in corporation tax on the profits earned from that. So you take more of that money back into your business to invest further. A great capital allowances system, full expensing, £1 million annual investment allowances. These are all good things that are going on and that are available to everyone. Doesn't matter what field you're in. It doesn't matter what you come in here to do. All these things are available to you. So looking at the individual sectors, these are the ones that the government are backing, that we're backing within the industrial strategy, because they represent the opportunity for growth in the future. I'm not going to read through the slide. You can see here we have the 8, what we call the super sectors, and then underneath there's like multiple subsectors that feed into that. So for instance, in advanced manufacturing, you've got automotive, aerospace, actual space, things like digital technology. I've been doing a lot with quantum recently as one of the big things that's coming up within digital and tech, and that goes across the different sectors. But this does cover, I think, the real key areas where the UK is already strong. We're already doing good things in these spaces. There's already great ecosystems that have exist around the country. So these things that are there ready for people to join. But what we want to do is accelerate them further and use the industrial strategy and everything else we have around to do that. So I'm going to go now through a few different slides. I'm going to be relatively quick for each one, just conscious of time and with 8 sectors to cover. But there's QR codes on each of the pages, which if you're quick, you can scan them now, and they'll take you to more information about that sector, where you can find more detail. You can find it, as I say, on Expand Your Business site, which will be linked in the chat at the end, or I believe the slides will be shared and you'll be able to get them there. So for advanced manufacturing, the UK is having a real renaissance in high-tech manufacturing. There's a lot of great places going on, a lot of what we call catapults, which are really accelerating growth in this field, really working with companies to drive this next level. The use of robotics, the use of AI, the use of all those things in advanced manufacturing that really support reducing costs, increasing production, and also making the tools and the technologies of tomorrow. We have large amounts of funding available, lots of support, especially around R&D. That's towards zero emission vehicle manufacturing, but there's also plans around what we call the Made Smarter campaign, and they're spending around 100 million working with SMEs, small medium enterprises, so those small medium businesses, to help them adopt new technologies. So where those new technologies come out and they're very expensive to adopt, we have support in place, not just financial support, but also technical support for companies to actually start using these technologies to help them grow for people who are based in the UK. Then we have clean energy. Of course, this is one of the most important things globally that we can look at. There's large amounts of money being spent to support that. £300 million for offshore wind supply chains, and near £500 million for clean industry bonus for offshore wind, and then lots of work around nuclear. There's been an announcement this morning, perhaps some people have seen it, about a small modular reactor being built in Wales that's being supported by the government, which is a really a fantastic thing to see, and this is a proof of concept. And I'm told these small modular reactors nearly click together like IKEA furniture, and actually seeing them in operation is going to be fantastic within the UK. And there's all the work around the supply chain, people to come in and work around that. Then we've got digital technology, and I'm going to say that this is a sector that I absolutely love. That there's so much going on here at the minute, and from an Office for Investment point of view, it's great to see where the UK sits with this, where the opportunities are. For instance, around quantum technology, we've just recently had the Quantum Showcase in the UK, where we showcase all these new technologies and looking for these businesses, investors, companies to come into the UK and work with these technologies that are going on. HSBC, for instance, worked with our National Quantum Computing Centre to do a trial on fraud detection, which was just way better than anything else that currently exists, where I believe in the case study it shows they had no false positives and they will get much more returns for fraud detection. And these are the type of opportunities that are open for businesses to come in, work with the National Computing Centre, work with our other hubs that are in the UK that are really driving this technology as a global leading basis. And then there's a lot of money being spent on training. A lot of money on apprenticeships, making sure if your company's in the UK, if you're an investor in the UK, you have the workforce that you need, that you have the skills and everything that you want to employ. As we said before, we have these fantastic universities, but they're spending even more apprenticeships and other ways of skilling people up. So for financial services, I think Joe touched on this really well at the start about where London and the rest of the UK sit in the financial services market. What we want to do is drive this forward even further and make it even more a desirable place to go. So work with what will become the UK's pension fund, the mega fund, unlocking huge amounts of money for investment. We now have within OFI a dedicated concierge service for financial services term called, it's not very clever, I'm afraid, our name. It's just the Office for Investment Financial Services, but it does say exactly what it is, which is saying that we will help you as a financial service businesses come to the UK and land here to understand what's available, what works. And this covers fintech and other areas there. Harks back to the quantum point that I was talking about. There's a lot of interconnectivity here where these new technologies, quantum, AI, all the other good things are really driving financial services and what we can do there. Next, we have life sciences. I'd say this is maybe one of the biggest sectors that can grow and improve as people's lifespans are increasing, as medical technology is needed, of all the new things that are available. And then there's a large funds to support investment. So there's a £500 million fund to land manufacturing investments within the UK. There's a significant number of reforms on to reduce trial approval timelines, get more participation in the clinical trials, double by 2026, and then double it again by 2029. New pathways to bring products to the market. And then I think really importantly for those who know the UK, it's like a low friction NHS access. Get access to the NHS gives you access to the whole of the UK from a life sciences medical point of view. And that's part of what the industrial strategy supports. Then we have defence, which unfortunately in an ever-changing world is something that's becoming more and more important. But what that means from an investment point of view, from a business point of view, more money is being spent in this field. There's currently a target of spending 10% of the Ministry of Defence equipment budget on acquiring novel technologies. So coming in as an SME, as a business to build and create these new things, there's significant appetite for the country, for the government to look and support those companies to grow. And the idea is to increase the Ministry of Defence spending with small medium enterprises up to by 2.5 billion by 2028. So really working with those SMEs, with those innovative new technologies and what's possible. Then we have professional business services. So for this, I think it's already a space where the UK does good work, and that's again, as I keep reiterating through this, and I probably just might feel a bit repetitive going through that, but the messaging is very much here, and what we want people to see about the industrial strategy is we're strong in an area. How are we going to grow it? How are we doing it more? And that's what this is all about. So again, in this sector, really supported it. There's funding available, like £150 million funded for the main Sparta programme, which is again where we support companies onboarding new technologies. How can they use the latest AI tools? How can they use the latest quantum tools as they come on? All these latest technologies that are developed, support those companies in actually utilising these and utilising them from a UK base. So if you make those technologies, we'll be helping your potential customers actually adopt those technologies. And then finally, we have the creative industries. I also think this is a fantastic one for the UK. It's a very interesting one, sort of how the world is globally. The UK is fantastic for creative. It kind of has been since Shakespeare times, perhaps, even when we then went through sort of the 60s and 70s with the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and music around the world, cinema, and all types of things, and all types of media, theatre, and all these things. And really, there's a lot of support for how we can keep doing that, especially in the gaming industry. I would have liked to have talked about Grand Theft Auto 6 today, but unfortunately that's now been pushed back to November. So that was something that was going to come out in the UK and be a big messaging. But there's great games companies there, loads of fantastic people to work with, and then there's funding and support to actually help companies deliver that, help them come in. So there's a Creative Places Growth Fund. So it's not just London, it's very much the rest of the country, how we can grow from there. Like Rockstar Games in Dundee, we have places like Double 11 down in Middlesbrough, who are one of the biggest indie game companies in the world. And there's other things like that going on. So I'm conscious I've talked quite a lot there, quite a lot of time. So I apologize, I've probably taken up more time than I should. But I just want to wrap up with Expand Your Business, as I mentioned earlier. We have a QR code here. And if you scan that and sign up, tell us what tell us, fill in form. It'll sort of then give you some bespoke information and really support you with your journey, give you information about the industrial strategy that's specific to your business, specific to what you need. And then it'll sort of put you into our ecosystem to start conversations or to see what you actually need to invest and grow in the UK. So thank you for your time, everyone. Thank you for listening. And if there's any questions in the chat, I'll be able to pick them up. But for now, I'll hand back over to Joe.
Thank you very much, Ben. And thank you very much for trotting us through those sectors. It's really great to hear the kind of overarching position, but also the kind of individual sector priorities. And I think that we're going to drill down in particular into a kind of experience of a company now, but a company who has a very long history in the UK, I think over 125 years, but I'm sure Aman can tell us a bit more detail. But I think it's, the journey is a powerful example of how UK government as well can work with big companies, from regulatory support to infrastructure and talent. Bosch, I think, has managed to leverage the UK strengths to really grow and innovate and really embrace the UK as part of your journey. So I will hand over, Aman, for you to say a bit more. And you're very welcome to be with us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm really grateful and very thrilled to be here today to talk about our journey as a big corporate in the UK. And I'm sure also with the audience, my European fellows as well, that they will agree that the UK as a country is inspiring from lots of factors. But first of all, let me take you with the journey of Bosch in the UK, which started at 1898 when Bosch came here to the UK, and was the second market he opened an office. He really wrote a lot of love letters about the UK when he was an apprentice, and also the commitment from his end, which has actually continued to thrill down the companies until now to the UK market. We are, as any other company, we are a profitable company. We look for opportunities to grow our business, but as well as to show our ethics and commitments to the customers, to the partners, and to the suppliers, and also to the community we live in. From the perspective, Bosch has more than 6,300 employees in the UK. We have more than 50 sites across the country, and we are active in all sectors. Majority of the sectors are the more important one, I will say, is the automotive sector. We're one of the biggest tier one suppliers for the automotive sector. It contains about 65% of our revenue comes from this sector, active also in the domestic and commercial heating, as well as Bosch House appliances, power tools, and nevertheless, energy applications, industrial points, 4.0 applications, digitalization and AI. So really in each sector. And if you have questions for specific sectors, do please ask me in the chat. As an investor, we look into 4 areas which we invest in. And reasoning for that would be either that we would like to complement our product portfolio, or we are looking for skilled workforce to enhance actually certain development and R&D we're working on. Thirdly, we're looking for markets to be early adapters. And fourth is where we can find startups and SMEs to build up our supply chain for the future. These are the 4 areas we usually look into it for our inwards investment. The last, and I wouldn't tell you how much investment we did because it's a huge and you can look into it, but I want also to pick into the last 3 years specifically, where we had more than 620 million investment. And these investments really were either targeting expansion on companies to look for skilled workforce. So we had one of our acquisition, 5AI in Cambridge. And that was actually to complement our team for automated driving technologies. One other area is our acquisitions for Protec in the north. And that was actually to complement our product portfolio from the security perspective. And one of the other areas as well is the venture capital. And you will wonder, why would Bosch invest in venture capital on startups in the UK? Because the UK is the second globally for incorporating and also being an incubators for startups, second worldwide. And 40 million of this investment actually just happened the last 1.5 years in the UK. But what I wanted also to say is that it's the government which made all of this possible. Of course, as an investor, we have experience, we have lots of partners in the UK, but also that wouldn't happen if we don't have the support and really the collaboration with the government team. And I want to point out Department for Business and Trade. I want to point out also the local team working in the European countries itself. We have very good relationship with them, and they actually really made these investments possible. It's working in collaboration, it's working in team together to actually get the best out for the country, but also for business moving forward. And One of the areas we worked in jointly is, for example, the tax credit. We had lots of R&D activities, and we sometimes depend on public funded support on that side of things. R&D tax credit, which was mentioned from Ben, but also if you look to the university's landscape, the academic landscape, it's incredible. I mean, I don't have to list to say Cambridge, Sheffield University for the best engineering, Oxford, and then you have UCL, you have Imperial College. You really name it. Names of academics and universities is incredible to work with them, and we have very positive experience in that side of things. But I wanted also to point out, if we were looking on the digitalization and AI, and majority probably of European companies are looking into that, the UK population they don't have fear of adopting technologies. And if you look into the online activities in the UK or e-commerce, the UK is incredibly in adopting new technologies in that side of things. The e-commerce, for example, for us in our market perspective is more than 45% in comparison to any other European countries. So there is a huge opportunities in expanding here. But the digitalization is also the regulatory requirements and frameworks put in place through the industrial strategy, which is actually allow you even to cut more the red tapes and actually to encourage more growth in that side of things. And other areas as well, and I see a lot of comments about the energy, which is, of course, from the manufacturing side of perspective, is a headache for all of us, not only for the UK, but in other countries as well. But I can assure you that the high-valued advanced manufacturing definitely will advance in the UK because of the skilled workforce, but also working with the government in finding solutions in cutting the cost of energy and making it more competitive. There are actually indeed one initiatives, which is the UK government team working on it. It says how we can make the UK competitive from the energy perspective. They call it BECS, or British Innovation, competitiveness for the energy. So I can go on and on and on, but I really wanted also to allow the discussion with my fellows from Europe. But I wanted to close remarks in saying, wherever you successful as an investor, if you don't have the right regulatory requirements, you don't have the right skilled workforce, and you don't have also the acceptance and adoptions from the environment itself to grow the markets, you wouldn't be successful. And this is really all, in my opinion, you will find in the UK, and especially the language of English. We all can speak English, and that is actually makes it even more easier in the accessibility of the market space. And one last thing as well, please also think that the UK was one of the first to strike a deal with the US. And that was very helpful to mitigate the tariffs dilemma, which we all have. So this is also something we should actually respect and also get inspired that they were the first pioneers to get that strike the deal to help businesses moving forward. I will stop here, Joanna, and I leave the audience if they have any questions moving forward.
No, Aman, you're doing a great job. I think it's much more kind of compelling coming from you as well, who kind of as a business are really making these things come alive. I was going to ask you about the importance of an industrial strategy and which specific elements that you particularly would emphasize in terms of supporting your businesses, but you've clearly gone through a lot of those real strengths already. So thank you very much for that. I was just wondering, the strategy also emphasizes regional growth and kind of innovation clusters. And I wonder if you'd taken up any of those opportunities, or if that's the interest to your business.
Absolutely. We are active. As I said, we have 50 sites, more than 50 sites across the country, and it has a reasoning for that. It depends really on what you would like to achieve, and that is the beauty in the UK. So, for example, let's say you are looking in advanced manufacturing and energy. Scotland would be the best, for example, place to do that. It's because also the accessibility for the green hydrogen, renewable energy, and also the northeast and Teesside. If you are looking, for example, in visualizations, AI, you may want to look into the Cambridge, Oxford, or the ARC corridor, which is it's like the Silicon Valley in the UK, and it really contains a lot of SMEs and startup companies, which is through the UK industrial strategy. It really eased the whole collaborations with the SMEs and startups, because it does support SMEs and startups. And one element, as well as in the UK industrial strategy, National Wealth Fund is not in the industrial strategy, but it was actually also announced at the same time to help the smaller businesses to get seed funds and investments to allow them to grow. And you know, this is something you can Google it if you are a startup or SME. Is for us, for example, in talking to our SMEs and startups, they really, some of them rely on the National Wealth Fund, but they found it very helpful for them to grow. So you know, another areas in the regions, you know, the Midlands is the hub of the automotive sector. All of the universities around it actually catering for the engineering side of it. And it really goes on and on. So regionally perspective, we work with the local authorities as partner to embed and actually strengthen the supply chain in the region itself, but also to look what can be done depending on the strengths of the region to grow our business. And therefore it's not like, you know, you go and you have a building and then you just you know, sell your products. It's really about also growing the business and also creating jobs. It's giving back to the society, which we're always keen on doing it. And that can only happen if you work jointly together with the local authorities. And this is really enhanced through the industrial strategy.
Thank you. As central government, we can kind of offer support, but also in terms of those local areas as well. We work very closely and kind of connect companies to those economic development agencies locally as well. We work, for example, in London with London and Partners, in Manchester with Midas, and kind of around the country. This is you know, duplicated not just in England, but in the nations as well. There's lots of support out there to support businesses. Just in comparison to your work elsewhere, how does the UK compare to other markets in terms of ease of doing business? You mentioned already that our kind of innovation potential is very high in terms of startups, in terms of government industry collaboration. Like, how does it general kind of ease of doing business and kind of working with government compare in the UK?
Yeah, I find the UK government very pragmatic, and also very flexible if it comes really in helping business. I also find the satellites which you created it in the European countries, and actually globally as well, really help in getting a pre-understanding about what you need to be done before accessing the market. So this is definitely strength to the UK government, but as well as to the team who are working behind it, like Department for Business and Trade, for example, Office of Investment. Please do reach out to them. We, until now, and we are established in the UK, we still use these resources to get more understanding about certain areas. For example, I find it, without pointing out in certain countries, I find it sometimes really difficult to access the government's instruments within these countries, because they're not really sometimes business minded, or maybe they don't have the resources in place, or they have different priorities. This is cannot happen in the UK. They are very business friendly. They have a specialized workforce that they can actually give you advice in the UK, but also in their satellites in the countries as such. And I can only praise them for the excellent work they do. So if you have any questions or doubt, or you want to start a business in the UK, do reach out to the embassies, and they can guide you definitely to the right direction in the UK, and also to get more advice. There's also one thing I didn't mention, is the catapults. The catapults in Germany, for example, is really comparison to Fraunhofer institutes. And the catapults could be also another access point if you want, for example, to get a view about the marketplace. They have also access on workforce. They can give you advice also on certain technologies. You can collaborate with them. Another access point, for example, for technologies and R&D activities as well.
Super, thank you very much. Yes, we are going to put some information up about the Expand Your Business service, which will give you the kind of gateway to accessing information. But in many embassies, not every embassy around the world, but in many embassies around the world, we are represented as the Department for Business and Trade. I sit here in Paris, for example, and support French investors in particular, kind of coming from here. Just a kind of final question from me before we start diving into some of the questions that I can see appearing in the chat, Iman. Maybe if you just had kind of one piece of kind of key advice for companies thinking of investing in the UK, what would it be?
My key advice is really look into, first of all, which technology exactly you want to bring to the market. Get advice, as I said, from the Department for Business and Trade. The websites are excellently described, and there's always a contact person there. And as I said, if you don't have the contact clearly, please do, as Joe said, reach to the embassies, but please also reach to your fellows business companies like us or others, and look to have local partners. I know that we have the dilemma sometimes in Europe that we want to bring our partners with us, but it really would be helpful for you if you leverage the local partners in the UK. They're highly skilled, the supply chain is excellent, it's actually very competitive, and they're very flexible on your needs, what you would like to do. And think about it, it's about growing the business. You can grow the business if you create jobs. If you create jobs, you will build a supply chain and you will create resilience. So my advice is, as I said, look into these elements, what we discussed anyway before, and reach to your other European companies, fellows. I'm sure they will be able to help you.
Thank you very much. Right, so let's turn to a few of the questions in the chat. I can see somebody's put their hand up. I think we can't kind of mute your microphone, but if you want to put your question in the chat, we can kind of come to it there. There's a question about like energy and kind of energy. I know that you've touched on this already, Iman. I just saw that there was a reference to the National Energy System Operator. And the connections reform timeline has all now been published. This is the kind of implementation of this that is starting at the moment. And as you've mentioned, we've got grid connectivity for priority investors to make sure that big investors who need that grid connectivity as a priority, that there is an opportunity to fast track those processes. So on the energy side, as mentioned, we're all kind of struggling with higher energy bills, but doing quite a lot of work on that. I would say sitting here in France as well, I do a lot of work with EDF, with ENGIE, with Total, with others, but in particular kind of with EDF and kind of supporting them to kind of come in. I know that Ben also referenced this morning, there's been announcements about the expansion of SMRs into Wales. There was reports this morning I was listening to on the BBC from Anglesey in Wales about that bringing to a kind of decommissioned nuclear site. It's now becoming a new nuclear site again, so a lot of investment going on to ensure our energy sustainability. Work that we did with France over the summer as part of the UK-France Summit saw a huge commitment from EDF into Sizewell C, so building a further nuclear power station. And in recent, I think last week as well, it was the investment into Sizewell C from private investors was also announced. So there's a huge amount happening on the energy side. We are definitely not resting on our laurels in that area. Somebody asked a question about defence sector and if there's a strategy in that area. There is indeed. There's obviously been a strategic defence review in the UK, and then there is an industrial strategy that sits alongside that. So really important, and that's all published on our website. So if you go to gov.uk, or indeed you Google the UK's defence sector strategy, that is all there, the industrial strategy for the defence sector set out very clearly. And I know you were mentioning, Aman, kind of our automotive supply chain in the UK. We also have a huge aerospace and defence sector supply chain in the UK. Works very closely with us here in France as well. We have significant presence from Airbus, Thales, Safran in the UK as part of this, and at kind of all levels, a very kind of strong supply chain on that side. So certainly look at the defence supply chain. And on the innovation side, really impressive work that's going on around tech and AI and applied to the defence side of things. So we had announcements over the summer from a number of French investors into AI capability for defence as well. Oh, somebody's very helpfully kind of put in the chat here the defence industrial strategy. Can I hand over to Ben for a kind of few reactions on some of the questions while I have another look at the questions that are coming through?
Yes, yeah, I think there's some great questions there, some great observations. I particularly like. I agree with the comment about it's really good that we're highlighting our strengths and really pushing what the UK can do and what's there. And yeah, I think that's a great comment. So I think Rob's link there around the defence sector plan for the conversation about how do we link in with the ecosystem. The information sort of there about how we're going to support companies, how they're going to be able to link in. And I think as both Iman and Joe have talked about, there's when you're in the UK, there's really good local representatives, really good people there who will work with and support you doing that. And then before you come there, nearly no matter which country you're in, we'll have staff in the embassy who are there to support an investment journey and then support people coming in. I saw there was a couple of other questions just sort of around the I don't think I can answer that one. I'm afraid on the from Abigail about the Dutch company. I'm afraid that's not something we're expert in, but maybe someone can point you in the right direction for that. And yes, from the NISO one, we're absolutely pushing on that. We have some of our senior leadership do a lot of work cross government. The structure of the Office for Investment is a very cross-government investment promotion agency. We link into sort of Downing Street into the Prime Minister's office. His special advisors are very integrated into what we do. Our Minister for Investment is someone was external government and was brought in specifically to lead investment within the UK, so that they do a lot of work and have a lot of conversations about these type of obstacles that we see companies talking about, like making sure that grid connectivity that I talked about, and that we're really driving this clean energy and clean power. And I think that then brings down the energy costs as we do that, and we get that right. That will bring down the energy costs, and that just helps everyone. I have two young children, and I must admit, when I look at the clean energy stuff, it makes me really happy, because not just do we support businesses, we're also creating a better place for everyone, and the work around the supply chains, what we do can really help that. There's a couple of questions there. I don't know if you're able to answer them, just about how have you found bringing staff into the UK for when you've needed that for Bosch to support, versus the recruitment within the UK, but also bring people in. How's that worked for you?
So we work with lots of universities to find talents, and we anticipate that for the next 10 years we will have a shortage of more than 6,000 vacancies, especially in AI and digitalization. But work also with the DBT. We look actually to different areas. So we need apprenticeships, skilled students. So this is one area we're looking to, especially electrification, battery technologies, and we work jointly with the local authorities on this side of things. I was told I need to shout out to the Midlands. Yeah, absolutely. WMG, the universities in Warwick, Coventry is really the best. We encourage to do lots of R&D with them. So yeah, shout out to the automotive definitely in the Midlands, and we are a part of the Midlands as well. We also recruit through, as I said before, really building up the pipeline of the talents. So we work with a graduate scheme. We work, as I said, with apprenticeship, but also we try to go early in universities to raise the profile of Bosch. We're a supplier. We're not very attractive. If you look to the automotive sector, the OEMs, if you Aston Martin or if you're Bentley, you're more attractive than the supply chain. So we have to do more work in the universities. But I have to say as well, because you have an international students coming into the UK, this actually seeds into this exchange between the British students and the international, makes it more attractive for the international companies to I wouldn't say hunt for talents, but definitely to find the right talents in the market. So the UK citizens, they're very well educated from the side of studying for tech and engineering. And please think that in the history, lots of innovation came from the UK. So it's not something that we are just bragging about it. It's a historical theme that the British population very well educated. So it's no difficulties to find talent, but we use also recruitment companies as well. They help us in finding the right talent as well. Sorry, it's a long answer, but I just wanted to highlight this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just going to pick up on a couple of the other things that have been flagged in the chat. So talking about the kind of scope of the industrial strategy and, is this enough to kind of focus on just these 8 areas? I would say that once you look in the industrial strategy, the kind of buckets of each of those areas, like, clean energy is obviously a very wide bucket, advanced manufacturing, there's a lot in there covering lots of different sectors. So when we talk about the kind of 8 areas, it actually covers probably about a quarter of our GDP in the UK. And these are identified as the key growth driving sectors. So they are the areas that we really want to kind of focus on in terms of really driving that economic growth for the UK. That's not to say that no other work goes on across UK government on other sectors. We do work across other sectors, although we are prioritising these areas in terms of attracting international investment in particular. But there was a kind of question, for example, about mining and why isn't mining kind of included? That's not to say that we don't do work on mining. I do work on lithium mining, for example, from here in France. So just to say that doesn't mean that the UK government doesn't work on the other sectors. It's just that these are particularly prioritised for investment, including international investment, because they are identified as the key growth driving sectors. There was a question as well about the connectivity across government and trying to get government out of its silos. So the Department for Business and Trade is one of our kind of key USPs that we kind of work across government as well, and the Office for Investment as well very much seeks to kind of join up across government. And these industrial strategy sector strategies were all developed cross government, so involving the relevant government departments. This was not an exercise where this was kind of drafted from the Department for Business and Trade. It was very much a kind of partnership across government. And for example, on the defence sector strategy, the Department of Business and Trade worked with Ministry of Defence, but actually Ministry of Defence, of course, drove that strategy. And I think the example that was given in the chat was the Department for Science, Innovation, Technology. So of course, it was really important to work very closely between DBT and DSIT on that kind of particular strategy. So just to reassure you, that is very much one of the key objectives of the industrial strategy, is to make sure that government is sufficiently joined up. Right, I can see we have kind of a few minutes left, so I'm going to come back first to Ben and then Aman to kind of give us a few kind of final thoughts and reflections and any kind of things in the chat that they've seen that they want to kind of pick up on before we draw this to a close. I'll come to Ben first and then to Aman.
Brilliant, thanks, Joe. Yeah, just one thing I would quite like to pick up from the chat there. Just a question from Becky on the being more locations in the UK than sectors in the strategy. I think one thing about the industrial strategy, it's really location agnostic. Like we're not so interested in where a business comes. We have ecosystems that are really good, life sciences in Liverpool, or AI and cybersecurity. Someone talked about around GCHQ in Cheltenham. Like there's areas outside London. Oh, it's Nissan. I should talk about the northeast of England since that's where I'm from. We have Nissan up in the northeast for electric vehicle manufacturing. We're interested in the businesses coming in. It's great if they go into where the ecosystems already are, because I think that's good for the businesses. But we are particularly interested in where people come and locate, as long as it's in the UK and it's helping drive investment, jobs, all the good things, and that they can join all the good things we have on offer. It doesn't matter whether you're in the south of England, the north of England, Scotland, Wales. There's all the good things going on everywhere around there. So I would encourage everyone to look at the whole of the UK, not just being London centric, or not just where maybe an ecosystem is. If there's somewhere else that you think would better suit what you're doing, I would look everywhere. And just following on as well from what you said about the connection of departments, that's really where the Office for Investment sits. I'd like to think we kind of sit a bit in like the middle of the spider web that is government and local authorities and everything else that's going on. And we have a lot of information about what's going on in different areas. So we don't miss out on the investments or the companies that cover multiple sectors. We aren't just looking at it from one angle. We're picking up all of the angles, and that really should be what success looks like for us as a department. And what we would like to deliver is being that really connected area that can support investment and drive development across the UK and across multiple sectors. Thanks for me. So I'll pass over to Ivan to finish up.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here today and to talk about Bosch as a case study in the UK. Today is really as a teaser about what we do and our activities and investment. But please do reach out. I can see there are lots of questions coming from the perspective of visas, how we recruit senior management, how we also decide on venture capital. Reach out. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there, and I'm sure also our colleagues in the call, if you have any questions about, like Ben said, and Joe, you know where to find them. But I just wanted maybe to close to say is together we are stronger. It's not about Europe or UK. It's about how could we jointly create a prosperous economy for all. And that can only be done through the collaboration with businesses and governments. The UK government is excellent. They really, from our perspective as a German company, proven to be great and very collaborative. So do reach out if you have questions. But also, it's not the end of it. It will be, I'm sure, continuations of more the webinars to come. So yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, hopefully a success to all in the side of things of business.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all of your engagement online. I can see kind of lots of things coming into the chat, not all of them about investment, some of them about kind of cross-border employment and things like that, so which can be investment or potentially not. But I can see that Rob Logie on our team has shared in the chat some of the employment regulation information, which is in the Expand Your Business portal. So again, we will share with you the Expand Your Business information. And there are a couple of questions about planning I just wanted to kind of touch on, and there was a question about objections in planning, and that is what we've touched on earlier. A lot of this has been streamlined. So where previously there could have been multiple judicial reviews, that now is not the case. And it is really very much about the importance of economic growth being the very priority for this government. So whilst objections, of course, can be put in terms of, looking at making sure that we're protecting the natural environment, for example, it is now looked at much more efficiently and things move much quicker. And this has been a big priority, and the government did this as soon as they came in as a priority. Did not wait for the industrial strategy for this, did not need to to consult business on that and was very clear that reforming the planning system was an immediate priority. So thank you very much for all of your engagement. If there are kind of follow-up, the team are going to have a look and we'll follow up on some of the kind of outstanding questions or more that we can share. Please do respond to our poll, which should have just popped up to see if you kind of, if we've achieved being able to kind of impart a bit more information. Thank you very much for all of your questions and engagement today. Thank you very much to Aman and to Ben and to all of the team who have supported putting the webinar together this morning. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.